Beach Ethics Commission on December 8th, 2020 at 1 p.m. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which
it
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Approval of the minutes of the November 17th Ethics Commission meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or objections?
No, they look fine.
No, I don't.
Okay, without objection, they are approved. Thank you. All right, here's the deal. I put three substantive things on. Potential improvement of disclosure forms, proposed changes in the rules of procedure, and proposed changes in the ethics ordinance. I don't know about you guys, but I spent some time this morning reviewing the drafts that I've sent out in the last couple of weeks and found them insufficient. And I'd like to just sort of discuss some problems and hope, prepare to actually, try to reach agreements on things at the next meeting. And I'm glad Randy is here. We had three comments or suggestions with respect to our review of candidate disclosures. One was that we clarify what facially incomplete or defective means. Second, we clarify what role the Board of Elections has if we find that a candidate's disclosures are facially incomplete, or I suppose alternatively, if we find no problem and the Board of Elections reviews and sees something. In any event, it's got to be clarified in the ordinance, I think. And then there was a suggestion that we determine whether what to do if a disclosure shows a violation of the conflict of interest requirements. And I think the suggestion was that the point was we immediately investigate and declare the person guilty during the 14-day period. Now, on the first point, Fred pointed out that actually in our rules of procedure, we already had a definition of completeness of the submission as defined as a name on every page, each section marked, including the word none, written if any sections for which the filer has nothing to claim, legibility, and having an original signature, etc. Now, that definition doesn't sound complete enough to me. And in any event, it ought to be moved into the ordinance as part of, one of the terms to be defined at the outset is what the standard is for approving a candidate form. We also, the ordinance says facially incomplete or defective. We have some way of addressing facially incomplete. I can't think of any example of defective. So I think we should consider just saying facial, we're looking at is facial completeness, meaning, every page is filled out somehow and it's signed. Now, I looking at the current ordinance. Current ordinance says that if we find facial incompleteness, we have to tell the Board of Elections and forward any correspondence between us and the candidate. That implies to me that the Board of Elections makes the decision as to whether a candidate can run. That said, I don't like things by implication. There's no reason to have anything decided by implication. So we have to, I think, recommend to the town council to amend the ordinance to say absolutely explicitly, either the Board of Elections is bound by our determination and cannot allow somebody to run if we find that it is not a complete disclosure, or explicitly say the Board of Elections will make an independent judgment after review of whatever it is we say. But it certainly has to be, I think, absolutely explicitly in the ordinance. So there are no implications.
Phil, can I ask a
Yes.
question?
Yeah.
Legally, or this is maybe for Fred, is there any requirements and precedent from the state as far as how that should work?
Well, Randy just right before we got on, said he had a discussion with the county Board of Elections, Randy?
That's correct.
What was the discussion?
The county board of elections said that all they do is turn over the disclosure form to their ethics commission, who then deals with it then. And there's nothing that the election board does as far as removing a candidate because of a disclosure. That is done totally by the ethics. And she gave me a point of contact, who's the chairman of the ethics committee chairperson. And I didn't know, I will share that with you by email later.
Great.
And I don't know whether you would want to call her, because you're ethics, so you might want to talk to her instead. But there's nothing that for the Calvert County, the election board has no precedence to remove a candidate. And I want to point out that I agree with you, Phil, that something has to, if you're going to come up with something that is going to say you can't run as a candidate, it's got to be severe enough that you're going to do that. And secondly, it has to be in the code. It's got to be defined in the code.
Yeah.
And I guess it's in your ethics code. Now, I think you or I should talk to this Jennifer and find out what they do, because Christian Scott, who was my point of contact, who called me back from the election board, she said that in the past they had someone that the ethics commission was thinking about disqualifying, and so she may have some criteria as to what they were looking at, and be able to tell us where in the state or county law it says that.
Okay.
So you could verify that.
Yeah.
If I can make an observation, Phil.
Sure.
I don't disagree, I think, with anything that's been said. The only thing I would add is that this is a purely local issue, and I think that this commission and the mayor and council have great latitude in setting up the town's ethics and election procedures and criteria in a way that it feels will best reflect the interests of the citizens of Chesapeake Beach. So if the mayor and council decides that, yes, there should be a process for disqualification, then I think that ought to be, I agree, that ought to be outlined and detailed in the code and in either the ethics ordinance or the election provision or both. Let's just remember that if there's going to be a disqualification, then I think there needs to be some fundamental due process provided to the individual who's going to be disqualified. And this is going to be, not saying it can't be done, but it's going to put extreme pressure on whoever is making the decision because of the short window of time between the filing of statements and the time when ballots have to be prepared.
I wanted to make one other, I agree with everything you said, by the way. I would like to make one other comment, and that is whatever you decide is severe enough in the financial disclosure to disqualify someone should also disqualify a current council person. In other words, if they're,
Yeah. That's right. To be an
it
incumbent.
should also, it should also apply to an incumbent, and therefore, whatever's severe enough, they shouldn't be a council person anymore.
If I may, I think that if you're going to go that far, then I think you're going to need to make modification to the town charter.
No
Well,
matter
maybe. And maybe.
everything we said, you have to make modification.
Well, it's a difference whether a modification to the code or to
Oh,
the
I see.
charter.
I see.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
And the reason I say
Oh,
that
so-
is because the criteria for holding office are outlined, spelled out in the charter. But I don't think that you can provide for forfeiture of office in the code.
Okay, well, that would, but still, that's one of the options that we can recommend. Mike?
Fred, on the question on the due process, so if we would disqualify a candidate because of some ethic issue, they would have to have a hearing in front of us. And
Yeah.
then would there be an appeal process where they could appeal to a higher level?
Okay, hold,
Okay.
let me, I had 3 points. I only got through 2 before we opened up. My third point addresses that.
Oh,
We had, one of the council members suggested that we investigate apparent conflicts of interest that are revealed in the candidate disclosures. And that's another, I think I'm more clear on that than I was yesterday. What we did in an improvement that we made in February 2020 was, for the first time, say that we can investigate possible violations based on our own review of information available to us, as opposed to simply only investigate only if there's been a complaint. It seems to me that, at least with respect to the annual disclosures, we ought to amend the code to say that we must in fact investigate any violation of the ordinance that seems to be revealed in a disclosure, right? Now that's the April disclosure. At the same time, during the 14 days allotted to us, there's, I don't think there's any answer to Mike's point. It can't be done. I think, and that should be set out clearly in the ordinance as well. That all we do for the election is see if a complete disclosure, a facially complete disclosure has been made. And then it'll be up to the other candidates and the voters to, decide whether, somebody's employment should preclude him or her from running, or being elected. And then we'd still have to, if we agree to that all we do during the 14 days is do the facial completeness review. We'd have to decide, I think it'd still be a lot, the 14 days passes, we then start to investigate an apparent violation. Do we try to finish that before the election? Or do we actually postpone the investigation until after the election? That's a nightmare I have, is we are, manipulated somehow to, make determinations that affect the election.
right.
My comment would be is that unless we come up with something that should be specifically disqualified, that is severe enough that it should disqualify them. And I don't mean facially incomplete, unless it's something that's actually a violation. Unless we come up with something, I would suggest that we don't try to rush you to get through, because the only way you're going to remove somebody is through a process. And then let's say it's an annual, let's forget the election. It's an annual one. What is your process for removing a council person who doesn't give you a proper this annual financial disclosure that you think is facially incorrect or has a violation. You're going to run through a process per your ethics code, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Well,
I think you should do that. I think we should change the code to remove that. You know, you got to respond to us by a certain date for the election, because I don't know what you're, you know, like I said before, I don't know what you're asking us to do, and we don't have anything that allows us to do anything. So I think it's got to go through the ethics process.
Yep. And we need to address that explicitly in the disciplinary action section of the code. And keep in mind Fred's point that it may not be, so here's the deal. For example, the conflict of interest provision says you may not be an official, including an elected official, if your employer has a contract with the town. Okay. Turns out, you know, when a disclosure shows that the council member works for a company that has a contract, a big contract. I have said repeatedly, but without sufficient basis, sounds like, that the person has to, at that point, either resign his council position or resign his job, right? It certainly doesn't, well, so we need to make clear whether that is what we want the law to say. And then it's part of that doesn't happen automatically. It's, we have to prove even though there wouldn't be any facts in dispute, but prove that the person has that conflict of interest. And I guess we issue an order removing them, and he says, no, screw you, take it, we have to go to court to get a court order.
Yeah, Phil, I don't think that the commission has the authority to remove a council member. There may be other sanctions, or you can go to court, have the court determine that the person is no longer holding office. But I don't think you can issue an order saying you're no longer a council person.
Okay, well, so let's next meeting, everybody do some thinking in advance. I'll send out another draft or two. And, let's deal with all these, complexities, so that, we have plenty of time before the next election, but we don't, before the April disclosures. And by the way, I think one of the minor things, I think we ought to change the heading from financial disclosures to just public disclosures, because a lot of stuff isn't financial at all. I mean, who you're employed by, it's not a financial disclosure. So that's kind of misleading. Ingrid or Mike, is there anything else that you think we ought to address today?
Not on this issue.
No.
Yeah. I really thought we were doing fine. I, got stuff out a couple weeks early. But again, I really appreciate Randy coming in. So that we're not, it would really be a waste of time for us to speculate as to what the Board of Elections position is. And I will follow up with the county. So, Randy, so it sounds to me like the County Ethics Commission can bar the candidacy of someone who comes in who's filed to run for county office. Is that right?
She indicated that, but she didn't know what it was. And so I was going to ask Jennifer that.
Okay.
Or you can ask Jennifer that.
Oh, both.
By the way, I like the example you gave about the law saying that you can't you can't hold office if your company has a contract. See, that's what I was looking for, was something severe that.
Yeah,
that
but
is direct
Randy,
violation.
the problem is there's for an incumbent to disclose that he works for a company that has a contract, then, whether it's April or the candidacy. And a non-incumbent, there is no law against running.
Right.
All right. That's not, there's no conflict of interest. There's no ethics violation. It is something that a voter, should ask, if you win, are you going to resign from your job? I mean, that's a political thing, and in the best sense of the word. So but this is, again, I feel good about this dialogue, quintologue. All right, schedule the next meeting.
What was that?
Schedule the next meeting. Does anyone have any interest in before Christmas?
No.
No.
How about the magic between Christmas and New Year's, or is everyone on leave?
Yeah, I'm on leave.
Yeah, we're on leave.
All right, so well, I don't have a January calendar.
Let me get my phone. I'll see what dates.
Okay, thank you.
Phil, okay, the week of January 4th, is available. I'm actually all of January I'll be around, so.
Okay, Ingrid's looking at her calendar, it looks like. I'm good on beginning of January.
I'm
Tuesday.
good except for the 5th and the first week of January.
Okay.
The
Yeah, but
6th,
the 6th is what day of the week?
Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Wednesday.
5th is Tuesday of January.
Yeah, the 5th is Tuesday, the 6th is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
That's
Ingrid, you-
fine.
That's okay?
Yep.
Randy,
Yeah.
how about you, just for the heck of it? You're muted.
I'm going to be free then.
Okay. All right, January 6th, Wednesday at 1 p.m.
Sounds great.
Okay, all right, let's see, comments by commissioners, and we now have a member of the public. Hearing no comments, everyone in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Okay, well.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes,
Happy holidays for everybody. Enjoy.
Thanks for
Joy.
letting me participate.
Yeah.
Happy holidays
Pleasure.
to everybody. Be well and safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sharon.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.